The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this January 22nd. It's Thursday. Hope everybody is having a fantastic week. And we are back for another episode of the Yaron Brook Show, and we'll be covering the news. The news today, all from the perspective of the greatness of the American founding principles, the idea of individual rights, the ideas of capitalism and freedom, and a world that does not tolerate authoritarians and bullies and bad guys, a world that strives towards liberty and freedom, capitalism, and the protection of individual rights. And we're going to start today with some segments out of a speech that Zelensky made, I guess this morning, in Davos. One of my favorite Davos speeches. My favorite all time is the one Millet did a couple of years ago, but this one was good. So I'm going to show you some segments, short segments out of it, in no particular order. Well, in some particular order, but I think that the theme they're running through this is European weakness and his kind of basically chiding of Europe for being so weak. Let me see. I think I have all the bits that I wanted. Yeah. All right. I think we have them all. So we'll cover those, and then we'll get into some of the other. We'll get into some of the other topics as the title suggests. The title covers the topics. Might add a topic or two, but we'll see. Remember, you can ask me questions or make comments. There's a feature on YouTube called Super Chat. You can put a dollar amount to your question. The higher the dollar amount, the earlier in the show I answer the question. I generally answer everything. I read everything that is submitted, even the insulting questions. But I do it approximately in the order, not in which they're submitted, but in the order of dollar that is attached to the questions. So feel free to do that. It's also a way to support the show. It's a way to value for value, trade with me. All right, let's go to Zelensky. Let's start here with this is really the opening of his speech. Let's start with that. Let me know if there's an issue with the volume or anything like that. And
just last year, here in Davos, I ended my speech with the words, "Europe needs to know how to defend itself." A year has passed and nothing has changed.
So, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this on this show for a long time, particularly given Trump, but Ukraine more generally. Europe needs to figure out how to defend itself. There's a threat, a real threat, not a pretend threat. And that threat is represented by Russia. It's right there. It has manifested in Russia's invasion into Ukraine. And Europe is still in a position of subservience and dependence on the United States. United States, if Putin invades Lithuania tomorrow, or Latvia, or Estonia, what is Europe going to do other than turn to the United States and say, please come help us, come save us? It's long past time for Europe to develop its own defense strategy, its own capacity to defend itself. And Zelensky is calling them out on this. He's kind of making fun of the Europeans, but 100% to the point, and a point that I made. Maybe Zelensky's listening to my show. Who knows? A point I made just a few days ago. This is about the troops that Europe is sending to Greenland.
Send 30 or 40 soldiers to Greenland.
Shaky is it?
What is that for? What message does it send? What's the message to Putin, to China? And even more importantly, what message does it send to Denmark? The most important, your close ally.
So, yeah. What are you doing? Some symbolic thing here? You're sending a few, one guy from the Netherlands and two guys from Finland. And what is that? What is that? Get your act together. If you want to send troops to Greenland, send troops to Greenland. Show you're serious about defending Greenland from a Russian threat, if there is one, or an American threat, if there is one. It's virtue signaling. It's meaningless. It's nothing. And good for Zelensky for calling them out on it. Now, this is fun because he's calling now, he's going to call Europe out for just their cowardice. They cowardice in facing Trump. They cowardice in facing everybody else, Turkey or Greece or anything associated with anything. The Europeans are cowards. So here's Zelensky on what you're not allowed to talk about in Europe.
And here in Europe, we are advised not to mention tomahawks. Not to mention tomahawks to the Americans. Not to spoil the mood.
Not to spoil the mood, I love that.
And we are told not to bring up Taurus missiles. When the subject is Turkey, diplomats say, don't offend Greece. When it's Greece, they say, be careful with Turkey. In Europe, there are endless internal arguments and things left unsaid that stop Europe from uniting and speaking honestly enough to find real solutions. And too often, Europeans turn against each other, leaders, parties, movements, and communities, instead of standing together to stop Russia, which brings the same destruction to everyone. And
so I like number says, is Zelensky mostly echoing Trump in this speech? Not at all. Trump is talking about some completely other issue regarding Europe. Zelensky is actually saying, why can't Europe stand up to America? Why can't Europe stand up to Russia? I mean, in another part of the speech, he says, Europe has a much higher GDP than Russia. It has much more sophisticated weapon systems than Russia. It could crush Russia like that, if not for nukes. Why isn't Europe standing up to Russia? Why won't Europe stand up to America? Why isn't he allowed to mention tomahawks? Because it might change, it might affect Trump's mood. So he's criticizing Europe for something very, very different than what Trump is criticizing Europe. The fact that they're both criticizing Europe does not make them the same. It's completely different. And I mean, Trump is criticizing Europe for accepting immigrants. That's not Zelensky's point. Zelensky's point is, you're weak. You don't need to be weak. You shouldn't be weak. You're not indeed, in reality, weak, but you act weak because you fight among each other. You can't come to any kind of consensus, and you cower. You cower before the Americans. You cower before the Russians. You cower before the Chinese, and you have no moral backbone. Stand up for yourself. I mean, Trump is saying Europe should invest more in its defense. Again, not Zelensky's point. Zelensky's point is, you're already powerful. So no, there's no similarity here. Indeed, Zelensky is urging Europe to stand up to America. Now, here's where I think it really, he's really good. And as far as I know, so far, the only leader that I've heard talk about this, and here he talks about Iran. And again, in the context of European weakness.
As for Iran, everyone is waiting to see what America will do. And the world offers nothing, Europe offers nothing, and doesn't not want to enter this issue as the supporter of the Iranian people and the democracy they need. But when you refuse to help the people fighting for freedom, the consequences return, and they are always negative.
When you, he's calling them out. You're not supporting Iran. You're not talking about Iran. You refuse to give the demonstrators any kind of moral sanction. You're not condemning the regime. You're not doing anything. And this will come back to bite you. You will suffer the consequences of this. This is, and again, where do you see political leaders actually saying there are long-term consequences to decisions? Here's more on Iran.
Much talk about the protests in Iran, but they drowned in blood. The world has not helped enough the Iranian people, and it's true. It has stood aside. In Europe, there was Christmas and New Year celebrations, the seasonal holidays. By the time politicians came back to work and started forming a position, the Ayatollah has already killed thousands. And what will Iran become after this bloodshed? If the regime survives, it sends a clear signal to every bully: kill enough people and you stay in power. Much talk.
So a little bit of moral backbone from somebody in Davos. It would be Zelensky who presents that moral backbone. Not Trump. Didn't talk about Iran. Not any of the other leaders. Zelensky saying the Europeans shape up, gain a backbone, take a moral stand, develop your own capacity to defend yourselves. You're rich. You don't need America. But in other parts of the speech, he says, look, but we can't trust Europe. For our security guarantees, we have to have America because they're the only power available until Europe wakes up and changes its ways. And here he is, just briefly on the board of peace. We'll talk about that next.
Today, America has launched the Board of Peace. Ukraine was invited, so was Russia, Belarus, though the war hasn't stopped. And there is not even a ceasefire. And I've seen who joined. Everyone had their reasons. But here is the thing. Europe hasn't even formed a united position on the American idea. Maybe tonight when the European Council meets, they will decide something. But the documents were already signed this morning, and tonight they might also finally decide something on Greenland. But last night, Mark Rutte had spoken to President Trump. Thank you, Mark, for your productiveness. America is already changing its position, but nobody knows exactly how. So things move faster than we.
So again, there's a board of peace. Ukraine was invited, but so was Russia and Belarus. So much for peace. Zelensky saying there's still a war. Why are the people who started the war invited to the board of peace? What is this? He doesn't want to criticize Trump too much, right? He just met with Trump. This is right after his meeting with Trump. And he doesn't want to criticize him too much. But his criticism really is to Europe. You don't even have a position. You haven't even decided what you're going to do. Everything, all of this is, everybody's signing, everything's going ahead, everything's moving forward, and what are you doing? You've got a meeting tonight, maybe you'll decide, maybe you won't, but in the meantime, the world is moving on, and Europe is way back because they can't make a decision. So, to a large extent, Zelensky's speech was a massive criticism of Europe, its inability to decide, its inability to act, its inability, really its unwillingness more than anything else, to stand for anything, to represent anything, and to have any kind of backbone. any kind of moral backbone. And that applies to America, that applies to Russia, and that certainly applies to Iran, where they still don't have a position. So, yes, Zelensky is the one world leader that seems to have the courage to actually call these guys out. All right, so let's look at the border peace a little bit more carefully. The border peace was established, signed, and its members all came together. Some of the members, not all the members, some of the members came together. Absent were Netanyahu and Putin, who both will not come to Switzerland because they're worried about being arrested because of warrants outstanding for them by the International Criminal Court. But they went ahead anyway and signed the document. And these are the members of the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace, right? Remember peace? Peace? Does peace mean anything? Members of the Board of Peace. Vladimir Putin, Alexander Lukashenko, Mohammed bin Salman, that is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the President of Egypt, Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of Turkey, Mohammed bin Zayed, President of the United Arab Emirates, Shavkat, can't pronounce his name, President of Uzbekistan, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Emir of Qatar, Kaisi Johad Tokayev, the President of Kazakhstan. I think Pakistan is also joined, and as a life member, Pakistan has committed $1 billion to the Board of Peace in order to become a life member. Now notice what is common to all of these, really all of them, every single one of them. They're all strongmen. They're all human rights abusers, individual rights abusers. They're all anti-Western. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 of the 10, I think, 7 of the 10 are Muslim. Wow. These are exactly the people you want solving the problems of the world. These are the people you want to get together in a group to bring peace to the world. Peace is a meaningless concept for Donald Trump. He empties the concept of all content. What does peace mean when these people are on the board of peace? Vladimir Putin. What does peace mean to him? Well, Russian dominance on its sphere of influence, which, if you believe Dugin, covers all of Europe. What does peace mean to Erdogan? Well, the reestablishment of the Ottoman Empire and the Caliphate under Turkey's rule. And by the way, is actively involved in violence and the killing of Kurds in Syria as we speak. What does it mean to Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar? It means Sunni Islamism, dominance of the world, maybe a united front with Turkey to bring about that caliphate. Now, I don't want to say anything bad about the president of Kazakhstan. I don't know, he might be a good guy. President of Uzbekistan, they might be good people. I don't know, although they're all authoritarian. All authoritarians. We know Orban. Orban. El-Sisi, president of Egypt. Yeah. These are the people that are on the board of peace, and Trump is there, and he's signing, and he says, he turns around to this group, right? This group, Putin's not there, but he turns around to the group and he said, I like every single one of these. Usually there are 2 or 3 or 4 people I really don't like, but here I can say I like every single one of them. I mean, the people he doesn't like are the people who actually have free countries. Because what Trump doesn't like is the very concept, the very idea of freedom. I mean, countries that weren't there, Europe, other than Hungary, Canada, UK, Australia. We still don't know what the status of China is, whether China will join. Maybe it doesn't consider this particular grouping as worthy enough for it to join. I don't know. It is a bit of a joke. Additional members of the Board of Peace who have accepted, who might not have been present. You've got the Prime Minister of Mongolia. Let me just see. Yes, Min Mohammed Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the President of Paraguay, the President of Kosovo, the Jordan, Indonesia, Bulgaria, so a few Eastern European countries, Azerbaijan, again an authoritarian place, even if relatively westernized, Armenia, Morocco, Bahrain. So again, dominantly Muslim, and I will say, sadly, Israel. Netanyahu is on the board of peace, supposedly. And I will say, sadly, that my favorite political leader in the world right now is also on the board of peace, and that is Javier Milei of Argentina, who seems to be willing to kind of follow along with Trump on whatever he asks, as long as he gets to do what he wants to do within Argentina. Maybe it's just a political ploy. Europe is trying to figure out what their position on this is. But I don't know why Western Europe should join. I mean, this is, given the names that I presented, what value does this entity organization have? Trump has veto power over its decisions. Trump is the chairman of the board for life. Even when he stops being president of the United States, he continues to be president for life. And supposedly, he gets to designate his successor. So, just a joke. Now, the initial purpose of this board for peace is to oversee the different entities that are going to be governing Gaza. But exactly what that means and what that entails. But Trump, in the document establishing the board of peace, makes it clear that it goes far beyond Gaza, and this is supposed to be a board of peace for the world. So it's going to be really interesting in the next 3 years, of Trump's presidency, maybe longer, who knows, the extent, how much this board of peace is used, what it does, how it functions, and if anybody really cares. The executive board that sits right under the board of peace, the executive board which will be actually engaged in the rebuilding of Gaza and in oversight over everything that happens in Gaza, is comprised of Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of UK, Mark Rowan, the CEO of Apollo Private Equity, Ajay Banja, the World Bank president, and Robert Gabriel, I guess a security advisor. I don't know anything about Robert Gabriel. Of course, there's another entity. There are a number of entities here, all with some layers of responsibility vis-a-vis Gaza. So this board of peace is a sick joke. It means that peace, qua peace, means nada, absolutely nothing, in the mind of Donald Trump, or in the mind of anybody who is supportive of this joke or caricature. I guess we will see. As part of the board of peace, Jared Kushner gave a talk presenting his vision for Gaza, for the future of Gaza. He showed a master plan for the future of Gaza. Now, remember, none of this just by the way, none of this has been authorized by Congress. It's not clear what the United States' responsibility is here. Is this some kind of treaty obligation that Congress has to ratify? What is Jared Kushner's exact responsibilities? Who, under what authority? I guess the president just appoints him and he can do what he wants. What is in what way is the congressional oversight? There isn't. Again, Congress, AWOL, completely AWOL. Completely AWOL. Just. Yeah, it is truly insane. Anyway, Jared Kushner presented his plan, and what you see are beautiful buildings and skyscrapers and residential areas and massive development, and all costing $10 billion or more. Involving raising Gazan. The average annual household income in Gaza to $13,000 within 10 years, creating 500,000 new jobs in construction, agriculture, manufacturing, services, and digital economy, $1.5 billion in investments in vocational schools for full labor to train the labor force, $25 billion of investment in building utilities and public facilities and stuff like that, $3+ billion of investment in commercial zones, businesses, and everything else. And this is the plan. This is the plan for the border peace. This is what they're going to do. They're going to rebuild Gaza. Also coming out of the discussions about Gaza, border peace and stuff, was the comment of, we want Hamas to disarm, but maybe they can stay on as a political party. Political party. And who's going to run this new Gaza? And let me let's just pause a second. Is the reason Gaza was so poor? Was the reason Gaza was so poor that they didn't have enough money? I mean, billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions more of dollars came in from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from the European Union, from the United States into Gaza. And they didn't build buildings. And they didn't build beautiful neighborhoods. And they didn't build commercial zones. They built tunnels. They bought weapons. So, why does anybody think Gazans want this? Desire this? They've been given billions, and what they did was invest in war. And that was Hamas. And now you want to make Hamas a political party, they might win again. If you have democracy, have an election, Hamas might win again. And then you'll give Hamas all those dollars, and what will they do with those dollars? Even though they're committed to disarmament, what will they do? Under the protection of the United States, under the protection of the border peace, they will build tunnels and bunkers and buy weapons and prepare for the next time they can attack Israel. Maybe it'll take 10 years, but they have time. They're not no hurry. And all under the protection of the U.S., the Board of Peace. And why are we pouring all this money into Gaza? Why are we rewarding a people who engaged in atrocities of October 7th? Why are we rewarding them for going to war in the most horrific, disgusting, horrible way? Why are the Palestinians getting a gold medal? New buildings, new condos, higher wages. I mean, all this money is going to have to come from somewhere. And, Jared Kushner was acknowledged that a lot of companies, a lot of private companies will be hesitant to invest in such a volatile area and such a volatile proposal. And he said, yeah, they'll be hesitant. So, we're going to have to encourage them. Is that going to be U.S. investment guarantees? And why would the U.S. do that? That's a much worse investment than giving Israel money. And then Israel just supposed to stand by and watch all this money flow into the hands of its enemy? And even if it's not Hamas, even if it's the Palestinian Authority, what are they going to do with the money? You think they're going to build and create? Again, they've already received hundreds of millions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And what do they do with them? Create a terror state. I mean, just on this, just on the border peace and his plan for Gaza, just on that, Trump should be denounced. Never mind everything else bad that he does. Why are we trying to create paradise for monsters who butchered 1,200 Israelis? And you might say, well, no, not all the Palestinians did it. No, most of them supported it. Many of them did it. Many of them followed the Hamas warriors into Israel, raped and pillaged, wanted to get in on the action. When Israel left Gaza, they handed the Palestinians factories and what do you call it? Where you grow plants. God, the word is in the tip of my tongue. Advanced technology to grow and build and create. And what did the Palestinians do with it the day after the Israeli left? Greenhouses, thank you. Greenhouses and nurseries. God, I can't believe I couldn't come up with greenhouses. What did Palestinians do with it? Next day, they came in and destroyed it all. They didn't want to touch it. You don't change a culture by pouring billions of dollars into their hands. You don't turn a primitive culture into a civilized culture by putting them in nice houses. But that is the delusion of Trump, because he's a real estate guy. What does he care? He's just about the buildings. It's a delusion of a Jared Kushner. They don't understand. They have no conception. They don't get it. And to do this hand in hand with the Qataris and the Turks, Qatar and Turks, both on the border peace, enemies, sworn enemies of Israel. And, Qatar justifying the slaughter in Iran. It's just insane. Just insane. All right. Anyway, so Gaza, I mean, it's just, Trump is such a buffoon. He really is. I mean, strutting around on this border peace with a bunch of authoritarian thugs, pretending that he's going to solve the problem in Gaza with this. I mean, pretending Hamas is going to disarm, pretending the Hamas political party is going to be peaceful, pretending this is all somehow going to come together. I mean, but that's okay. Much of the Trump presidency is about pretend. We're going to pretend we're going to get Greenland. We're going to pretend that we're going to get rid of all the illegal immigrants. We're going to pretend that we're not violating the Constitution. We're going to pretend and pretend and pretend. Ultimately, there's only one way Hamas is going to really, honestly, going to be disarmed. And that's if the IDF goes in and does it. And there's only one way in which Hamas disappears. And that's if Israel goes in and makes them disappear and disappears them. or they're expelled. The entire leadership and the entire fighting force is expelled from Gaza. As long as they're there, they will be a threat. As long as they're there, they represent an existential threat to Israel. All right. We heard what Zelensky had to say about Iran. Now, it's hard to tell exactly what's going to happen in Iran. The reality right now is that the United States is building up a massive military force, an air force, not a ground force, but an air force and a defense system, massive, much bigger than before they bombed the nuclear facilities. They have every type of airplane that they would need in order to execute a major assault on Iran at their disposal within striking distance. They now have an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. It ended this morning. The United States has the air defense systems, the Patriots, the THAADs, deployed to where they need to be to protect their own facilities. And now the world is just sitting and waiting to see what Trump decides. Will he hit Iran? If he hits Iran, how forcefully? In the meantime, in Davos, Trump and Witkoff and others are saying, we're going to negotiate. They are going to negotiate with the murderous, thuggish regime in Tehran while they're accumulating forces. And I assume the accumulating forces is a way to put pressure on the Iranian regime to compromise. But Zelensky's absolutely right. Okay, so you negotiate. What do you negotiate? So they'll cut back on they'll cut back on nuclear stuff, and maybe they'll promise to not buy any more, not build any more ballistic missiles, and what else? If you keep this regime in power, what are you telling the world? What are you telling the Iranian people? And how is this not going to embolden the Iranians? And by the way, a deal that Trump signs with the Iranian regime, with this Iranian regime, will also inevitably has to, given Trump's character, involve oil. So now you're opening the spigot. You're legalizing Iran's ability to export oil. What does that do? That brings in money. What is Iran going to use that money for? Well, it'll promise to use it to develop the economy. It'll pay off the shopkeepers. It'll try to pay off its own population. It'll try to improve their economic situation by handing them checks. But beyond that, we know what they'll use the money for. The same thing Hamas uses this money for. More weapons, strategically position itself so that next time it can resist the Americans. And the best way to resist the Americans is how? Build a bomb. Every time America negotiates with Iran, it just increases the motivation of the Iranians to build a bomb. Because a nuke will force negotiation. A nuke will eliminate the American and Israeli threat. And if Trump negotiates a deal with Iran, Israel, I assume, is just going to sit back because Israel's not going to piss Trump off by actually attacking. Now, look, I might be wrong on all this. And as we speak, the U.S. might be launching an attack right now on Iran. And we don't know. As I said, the assets are in place. The assets are in place to do it. Let's see. By the way, again, just a point on the I'm just seeing a post here on the border peace. If the border peace is officially a treaty, an international organization, then it needs congressional approval. It actually needs 2/3 of the Senate to vote for it. I don't think there's 2/3 of the Senate that would vote for this monstrosity. It's truly It's truly stunning. All this happening, by the way, about a peace, all this, we're going to rebuild Gaza, we're going to do all this stuff in the background of the U.S. betraying the Kurds and allowing ISIS basically free reign in northern Syria and backing a Syrian regime of former ISIS fighters. And clearly, this is what the Americans are backing as they're signing on to boards of peace. Now, again, back to Iran. Israeli sources are claiming, and I don't know, it's hard to tell. This could be wishful thinking on their behalf. Israeli sources are claiming that an attack on Iran could be imminent. And we're talking about an American attack, not an Israeli attack. The IDF has basically told everybody that this weekend to stay close to their phones and expect an emergency. Everybody agrees that the deployment of U.S. forces in the Middle East is nearing completion. The only question now is, what does Trump decide? And the question is, do they engage in diplomacy first? All right. Let's see. Was there something else I wanted? Yep. All right. So the future of Gaza in a PowerPoint looks great. We might see some real action in Iran. We will see. Yet to be proven. Again, Israel estimates, given the assets that the U.S. has in the region, that the U.S. is ready for some major devastating attack on the Iranians. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll celebrate it when I see it. We'll see. In the meantime, the Wall Street Journal decided to publish a propaganda op-ed by a member of the Iranian regime defending the crackdown. In the name of what? Balanced journalism? Unbelievable. Iran's government defends its crackdown. Unlike the restraint we showed in 2025, this time we'll have no qualms about fighting back with all we have. Yep, and they did. And they really did. The numbers now coming out of Iran could be in excess of 20,000 dead. 20,000 people going out there demonstrating for their own freedom, dead. And does anybody say anything? Anybody do anything? As Zelensky said, nada. Certainly not in Europe. And even the US. Trump said he was promised they'll stop the executions. All right. Let's see. Free speech. As you know, there really isn't much more important than free speech in order to defend our freedoms. Speech is what is required to make the argument against the injustice, the authoritarianism that we see rising in Washington and really around the world. Without the ability to speak, without the ability to criticize those in power, freedom is completely lost. And while, Trump is, God, I don't know what to say about Trump. But while Trump is not really ideologically a dictator, ideologically, he doesn't have an ideology that integrates his authoritarianism. He is an authoritarian. And he would like nothing more than to get rid of free speech. I mean, really would like nothing more than to get rid of free speech. He believes that any criticism of him is illegitimate, indeed treasonous. He has said so. And he keeps saying so. And he keeps saying so, and people ignore him because they're used to all the over-the-top stuff that Trump says, but he's president of the United States. President of the United States is actively, verbally, aloud, publicly questioning the value of speech. Here's his latest. This is from, again, a tweet that he published. Something has to be done about the fake polls. They are truly out of control. Now, by the way, how do we know they're fake? How do we know the polls are fake? How would you know the polls are fake? Because the negative about Trump. Trump's reality. Trump is the epitome of a primacy of consciousness mentality. Ask the philosophers who support Trump how this works. He is a primacy of consciousness mentality. He believes that he is the greatest president in human history. He believes that the country has never been better. He believes that things are amazing. Well, how is it possible that his poll numbers are low? Obviously, all of this stuff that he believes is true. And if it's true, and if he believes it, and if he keeps saying it, then obviously the American people think it too. Why would they think anything else? They're not idiots. So, the polls must be wrong. I mean, here's his full statement. Something has to be done about fake polls. Now, notice that's the key. Something has to be done. This is the President of the United States. Something has to be done. Well, what? What power does the government have? It has the power of force. It has a gun. We can stop these fake polls. Stop the criticism of Trump. Something has to be done. That, in and of itself, is a violation of the First Amendment. Right there is a threat. Right there is a threat that is aimed at silencing the pollsters, aimed at silencing, doing away with their free speech. We will continue. Something has to be done about fake polls. They are truly out of control, all caps. We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have the strongest border in history. Nobody has ever done a job like I have done. They have me in the low 40s. The Democrats destroyed healthcare. I'm trying to fix it. And they give me fake low numbers. Fake, all caps. Fake polls on the economy, on the border, on just about everything are ridiculous. And, this is the key word, dangerous. The real polls, real, all caps, have been great, all caps. But they refuse to print them. This is no different than a writer who is corrupt, of which there are many. The New York Times and so many others print polls that are knowingly false. Knowingly. They have become deranged and sick. Talk about deranged. They suffer from a major case of Trump derangement syndrome. Their 2024 election coverage was so bad and so wrong, and yet they never got called out for it. But I'm calling them out with the lawsuit that I have filed, which is making its way through the courts. They have to pay a price for, all caps, fake and fraudulent news. And hopefully, in the not too distant future, they will. So the fact that he's suing the New York Times from his position as President of the United States, big problem from the perspective of free speech. Big problem. And the fact that he keeps threatening them. They have to pay a price for fake and fraudulent news. Who gets to decide what the fake and fraudulent news is? The all-knowing, all-powerful, great leader. Yes, sir. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, and this will go unmentioned, and the right will just keep on going, and they don't care. They don't want free speech. If it means silencing the left, that's a good thing. How can you be against silencing the left? The left is the epitome of evil. They're the devil incarnate. They're all communists, and we should silence communists. And everybody to the left of Donald Trump, whatever the hell that means even, because isn't he left, is a communist and therefore should be silenced and made illegal. In addition, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, is gearing up to go after another aspect of free speech. They want to make sure that when Jimmy Kimmel or any other late night talk show host interviews people, he interviews people from both sides of the aisle. They want equal airtime on interview shows. So otherwise, I'll shut you down. This is going to only increase. That is, there's no question about the fact that this administration and its supporters do not believe in freedom of speech at all. And they would like to find ways that don't offend the American people too much, find sneaky ways around to limit, significant limit, free speech. This speech from the left. Yeah. All right. I'm just reading this as breaking news. I'm seeing it from a number of different sources, so maybe it's true that the Israeli security services suspect that somebody within Israel's defense establishment is using their inside information to make bets on poly markets in terms, I think, of an Iranian-related attack or not. So I don't know if that's just they're playing with us or if that is real, but we might want to check poly market to see what the odds are. What the odds are. All right. Let's take a look. Okay, finally, well, we might talk about one other thing. Jack Smith today is in front of Congress. He is in front of the House Committee on something and something. Jim Jordan is there. And testifying about his indictment of Donald Trump over the 2020, over January 6th, and over the documents. Jack Smith is no, he is a serious person and is not going to shrivel up and just play politics with these people. He's going to tell it the way it is. He has already said in testimony, public testimony, videos of this are going to circulate all over the place, that his investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump had engaged in criminal activity. He said, quote, if asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or Republican. He continued, no one should be above the law in this country. And this is, again, in front of a committee dominated by Republicans who are trying to grill him and trying to catch him out, right? And Trump is already tweeting about this and all pissed off. This is Jack Smith again. The First Amendment does not protect speech. So one of the arguments is, well, Trump had the right to claim fraud in the election. That's a First Amendment right. He can say whatever he wants to say. And this is Jack Smith's response to the fact that Trump's actions and speech, but particularly his actions, regarding the 2020 elections are not protected under the First Amendment. Quote, the First Amendment does not protect speech that facilitates a crime. Speech that is used to facilitate a crime. A fraud crime in particular is not protected under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court precedents on this is clear. Also from Jack Smith. My fear is that we have seen the rule of law function in our country for so long that many of us have come to take it for granted. The rule of law is not self-executing. It depends on our collective commitment to apply it. And I would say, in particular, the commitment of Congress to apply it. It's good that he's speaking to Congress. He goes on, and this is not necessarily in sequence. I have grave concerns about obstruction of justice in this investigation, specifically with regards to Donald Trump. I was aware during the course of our investigation of targeting of witnesses during the course of the conspiracy itself. There were election workers who had their lives turned upside down and received vile death threats because they were targeted by Donald Trump. Donald Trump suggested that one witness should be put to death and also made a statement to the effect of, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. In my mind, I can't think of a more direct threat. This guy has balls. You got to give it to him. He has balls. He says the investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. No one should be above the rule of law in this country, and the law required he be held to account. Again, quoting Jack Smith, President Trump was charged because the evidence established that he willfully broke the law, the very law he took an oath to uphold. Grand juries in 2 separate districts reached this conclusion based on his actions. Rather than accept his defeat in 2020, President Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results and prevent the lawful transfer of power. After leaving office in January 2021, President Trump illegally kept classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago social club and repeatedly tried to obstruct justice to conceal his continued retention of these documents. Highly sensitive national security information was held in a ballroom and a bathroom. Our investigation revealed that Donald Trump was not looking for honest answers about whether there was fraud in the election. He was looking for ways to stay in power. He, in fact, knew that the fraud claims he was making were false. I mean, it's brutal. It is brutal. And it's going to be interesting to see if there are any repercussions. My guess is no. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Everybody who loves Trump will stay completely 100% supportive of Trump. Nobody is going to question him. Nobody is going to challenge him. This is done, by the way, in front of a Republican Congress, Republican congressman. And my suspicion is it goes into one ear and it comes out the other and has no impact on them. Just has no impact on them. This is Donald Trump tweeting while Jack Smith is testifying, quote, deranged Jack Smith is being decimated before Congress. Really, maybe it's Donald Trump being decimated. It was over when they discussed his past failures and unfair prosecutions. He destroyed many lives under a guise of legitimacy. Jack Smith is a deranged animal who shouldn't be allowed to practice law. If he were a Republican, his license would be taken away from him, and far worse. Hopefully the Attorney General is looking at what he's done. Notice what's going on here. Notice what's going on here. President of the United States is threatening a witness who is testifying against him in front of Congress with prosecution. Hopefully the Attorney General is looking at what he's done, including some of the crooked and corrupt witnesses that he was attempting to use in his case against me. The whole thing was a Democrat scam. A big price should be paid by them for what they have put our country through. I mean, they were just, at some point, there are just no words for this president. I just don't understand anybody who continues to support him. I just don't understand it. Not if you're reading what he says, just his own tweets. He is behaving like Putin. He's behaving like a dictator. And luckily, we still have a semblance of a rule of law, semblance of it. So he can't just go out and arrest Jack Smith, although I wouldn't be surprised if Pam Bondi is building a case right now to do exactly that. It's it really is horrible, and what's particularly horrible is that Republicans on this committee are playing along. That is, they are attacking Jack Smith. He is clear, and he's got the stuff to back it up. And yet Republicans are not listening. They're just using this to try to discredit him because they only have an audience of one person, and the audience is Donald Trump. By the way, in the middle of a hearing, a Democratic congressman stopped and read aloud to everybody Trump's deranged, statement, which is threatening Jack Smith in front of Congress. I mean, any respect I once had for any of these Republican congressmen is now zero, nada. You can't. I mean, these people should be voted out of office. Starting with Jim Jordan, who's heading up this committee, who used to be decent, and has turned out to be a mouse. A mouse is too nice. Mice can be cute. I mean, just a weak, coward. And all of them are. Every single one of that caucus, the Republican caucus. I mean, who would ever think that Marjorie Taylor Greene had guts and everybody else doesn't? She left. She called Trump out and left. Marjorie Taylor Greene. It takes something for one of the kookiest people in American politics, in the history of American politics, for the kookiest person, one of the kookiest people in American politics to actually be right about something. All right. I mean, this is what he said about January 6th, about the pardons. The people who assaulted police officers and were convicted after trial, in my view, and I think in the view of the judges who sentenced them to prison, are dangerous to their community. Some of these people have already committed crimes against their communities again. I don't understand why you mass pardon people who assaulted police officers. And I don't get it. I never will. Because he's a decent human being. And our president is not. Yep. Good for Jack Smith to having the courage. I'll just say this. Good for Jack Smith to having the courage to stand up and say this in public, in spite of Trump's threats, in spite of the fact that Republicans are going to try to go after him and ridicule him and do everything else. He is saying it like it is. Saying it like it is. A Democratic representative asks Jack Smith, do you believe that Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you? Jack Smith says, I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by Trump. All right. That is the news, guys, for this Thursday, January 22nd. All right. Remind you that you can ask questions. I will answer them. Keep the questions coming, particularly if they're $20, $50, $100, anything above $20 is particularly valued and appreciated, and it gets us to our targets. You remember yesterday I showed you a video of Emily Schrader, which I was very impressed with, and I commented on it and put it up on the show and showed it to you. Well, somebody must have told her that I'd done that because she then commented on being in the video and said, oh, look, I'm there on minute 40, and started following me on Twitter. I followed her back. So now Emily and I are, I guess, following each other on Twitter. That's good. Maybe I'll have her come on the show. That could be fun. But to talk about Iran and to talk about Israel and everything else, she's incredibly eloquent and seems knowledgeable. So that was cool. I don't know who actually did that. Who actually let her know that I had mentioned. That had mentioned her on the show, but thank you, whoever let her know that. Thank you. Maybe she just watches the show. You think maybe that happened? That could have happened. But in any case, somebody mentioned it to her, and she followed me as a result. So that is good, and maybe we'll have her on the show. All right, reminder that value for value, you know the shtick. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, and please consider doing a super chat or a sticker to support the show right now as we are live. For those of you who are live, those of you who are not live, please consider becoming a monthly regular supporter on Patreon, patreon.com. Just put in Yaron Brook Show, and you can contribute anything from $2 to $1,000 a month on Patreon. That is greatly appreciated. Let's see. I want to remind you of Defenders of Capitalism, defendersofcapitalism.com, defendersofcapitalism.com. It's a great program run by Michael Williams. Michael is a friend and a colleague. I do work for Defenders of Capitalism. We do programs for leadership program of the Rockies, and maybe for in the future for other entities. This is a program that could be expanded. We need lots of Defenders of Capitalism, so join us. Check out defendersofcapitalism.com. Hendershot Wealth, Hendershot with 2 T's, hendershotwealth.com/YBS. If you have expecting to have large capital gains, tax liabilities, they have products, completely tax efficient, legal, that can reduce your tax liability dramatically, maybe even down to zero. So check him out. Check out the interview I did with Robert Hendershot on my YouTube channel under playlists, the playlist for sponsors. So anybody out there who is about to sell this company or about to sell, not about, but will in the next few years sell a big chunk of stock and have a huge capital gains, you should check out what they have. Check out their products. Incredibly valuable, and they're good people. I vouch for them in terms of both providing you with the information and executing on the strategy. Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is the #1 expert on all things energy in a time where energy is becoming more and more and more crucial for everything that we do in the world, and the demand for it is going through the roof because of AI. You need to be informed about what's going on in the world with regard to energy. The source I use, the #1 source I use, is Alex Epstein Substack, alexepstein.substack.com. And finally, join us in Portugal, for a conference. When is it? In a few weeks, in April, where I will be, and Nikos and Onkar and Tautsvani, and it's the Ayn Rand Conference Europe. You can check it out at aynrand.org/start here, and you can get a discount. You can get a discount for listening to this show. 26 YBS 10. 26 YBS 10. All right. Let's see. Let's jump in. Remember Patreon. Don't forget Patreon. I'm always looking for new Patreon supporters. We made kind of the goal for the first hour. Let's go for that second hour goal. I don't think we're going to go into a third hour today. We don't have a lot of questions, but we are certainly well into the second hour. So let's try to get close to that goal, as close as possible. Thought Criminal, thank you for the sticker. I really appreciate that. Let's see who else did stickers here. Not a lot of stickers. Fend Hopper, thank you. And that's it. That's it, I think. Yeah. All right. All of you listening, you could each do a sticker. It's easy. It's simple. And you can just do it for like $1.99 or $2.99 or $100.99 or $0.99. You can just come in and do something symbolic. Greatly appreciated, and all adds up. James says, you say Trump is not intelligent. It's hard to imagine winning 2 presidential elections without a high degree of intelligence of some dimension, unless you think it's all luck, right place, right time. No, I don't think you need that much intelligence to win an election. You need a certain ability. You need an ability to be able to read your audience. You need an ability to communicate to your audience in a way that resonates with them. But that does not make you smart in any kind of meaningful way. Since I believe that Trump is non-conceptual, he cannot deal with abstractions. He cannot deal with conceptual, abstract information. I consider that the hallmark of intelligence. He might be very good at marketing because he kind of has an emotional grasp of what people like and people want. Doesn't make him intelligent. Somebody says intelligence is overrated. Maybe intelligence is overrated, but conceptualization is not. We as a species, as an individual, thrive because of our ability to conceptualize, to engage in abstract thought. We are not an animal that is coded and pre-programmed to exist out there. And Trump is, as Ayn Rand described it, a perceptual being, a preconceptual being, and he has not risen, and as long with many of his voters, has not risen to the level of fully human in that sense, i.e., the rational animal, the conceptual animal, the animal that conceptualizes. I know lots of people who've graduated. I mean, if he was some leftist thug who'd graduated from Yale, as many of them do, you wouldn't say, oh, look, he graduated from Yale, he must be smart. You would have said, no, he's a leftist. They're stupid, they're idiots, they have no intelligence. But because he's somebody you like, oh, because he went to UPenn, he must be smart. No, he went, the fact that he went to UPenn, I got an MBA. I think he got an MBA from UPenn. Is that right? Somebody must know what degree he got from UPenn. But I got an MBA. An MBA is an easy degree to get. Studied business in university. I was a business professor. It's easy to get. You don't have to be particularly smart. You do not have to be particularly smart. Now, Trump is ambitious, and he's good at marketing, And there's certain ways in which he knows how to manipulate people, and he's very good at that. But does he have conceptual ability? No. As a domestic terrorist says, TDS is going to TDS. Yeah, TDS is going to be TDS. I.e., this is the difference. I provide evidence. Listen to his speech yesterday and tell me that that is a smart person or an honest person or a person with any kind of integrity. Take any of the tweets that I read to you about Jack Smith or about the polling and tell me that's a smart person. He was a developer of skyscrapers. He didn't design the skyscraper. He wasn't an engineer behind the skyscrapers. He wasn't an architect of the skyscrapers. As I said, he's good at reading and manipulating people. And again, the way I think about smart is conceptual. He is a selfishness without a self because he has no thoughts that rise above the very simplistic level of abstraction. And you can call that TDS if you want, that's fine. I've been called worse. But reality is what it is. James, one thing I just read is that China has been pushing for the past 30 years to get a foothold in Iceland. They now have a research hub that Icelandic officials have no access to and a university program at their top school. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. China's made a lot of investments all over the place. Iceland is, I think, a member of NATO. It's certainly a member of the EU. And yeah, it's in a key location. And I'm sure China has a foothold in lots of different places. Anywhere you go. China has huge footholds here in the United States. Massive footholds. I mean, I was just reading that in spite of all the so-called competition of AI, most of the leading AI papers that are published are co-authored by American and Chinese authors working in American and Chinese labs. So Americans and Chinese are cooperating on AI. Iceland is not a part of the EU? I thought it was a part of the EU. Okay. Matthias says they're not a part of the EU. So, yeah, there's no question that China has a presence pretty much everywhere. So does, by the way, in the United States in particular, so does Qatar. Qatar has invested in the U.S. much more than China in terms of university programs. Hopper Campbell. He's quoting Donald Trump. I'm a dictator, but sometimes you need a dictator. That was Donald Trump at Davos. Two things are hard to accept about Nazi Germany. One is that he was popular, people supported him. The other, he wrote a book in which he told everyone what he would do, yet people were surprised. Trump has said he will do many horrible things, gun down somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue. Well, he didn't say he would do that. He said if he would do that, people would still vote for him, which I think is true. But he has said he said he would deport everybody. He said all these things. People are still surprised. He said he would militarize ICE, and people are still surprised. So yeah, I mean, he says he's a dictator. I mean, he means it in the sense of, he does what he wants to do. And nobody cares. Certainly not Republicans don't seem to care. It's defenders, the people suffering from Trump zombie syndrome, which all the people who call me for TDS are actually suffering from. They don't care. He can say, yeah, I'm a dictator of the United States. And they will go, oh, cool. And you're criticizing him, Yaron? You must have TDS. I saw that he said that, and I didn't even make it into the news because he says stuff like that all the time, and nobody seems to care. You either you either get that's his mentality, or you don't get that's his mentality. And getting that's his mentality, you should get, not because he says it, but because of his other statements and his actions. Harrison. Quote, obstruction of a public thoroughfare is such a blatant violation of individual rights that any attempt to justify it becomes an abrogation of morality. This is Ayn Rand's thoughts on Jack Lang's right to protest in Minnesota. Yes, although she did say that once the government gives that right to do that to one group or one person, it has to give it to every group. It can't discriminate. That was in her essay where she's justifying allowing the Nazis, the neo-Nazis, to march in Skokie in Illinois, near Chicago. And she said, I'm against protests that, obstruct people's traffic and people's ability to engage in day-to-day life. But once this is what you do for some groups, you have to do it for all groups. Government can't play favorites, even though it does all the time, right? Stephen Harper says, thank you for the show you're on. Thank you, Stephen, for the support. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Jacob says, I'm 41, have been listening to you since around 2018, and I'm halfway through Atlas Shrugged for the first time. Wow, first time. I was inspired to learn about capitalism after first listening to Thomas Sowell. Well, that's great, and I'm super excited that you're reading Atlas Shrugged, and I'm incredibly curious to see what you think of Atlas Shrugged when you finish it. That is, when you get to the end of Atlas Shrugged, and I hope that'll be the first among many of Ayn Rand's books that you read. But I'm very excited that you're reading Atlas Shrugged because you've been listening to me. Jonathan, border peace is a Trump for life. Yes, it is. It's unbelievable. Fan Harper, $20. Thank you for this super chat. Actually, let me just thank the sticker people here. Joseph, Paul, and Free Market Capital. Thank you guys for coming in with some stickers. How do you differentiate smart and intelligent? I consider the first to be large stores of knowledge full of facts. The second, high understanding of cause and effect. Everyone I ask holds them differently, so I thought I would ask. I haven't really thought about it. How do I hold smart and intelligent? I don't consider smart as just somebody who holds a lot of facts. If they hold the facts and don't know how to use it, that's not very smart. Somebody smart or intelligent, and I think of them as pretty much synonyms to some extent, is somebody who can deal with a high abstract level, who can, you can be narrowly good at a field and then not be able to abstract on anything else. I guess that's possible. I guess what I'm really looking for is people who can use abstract knowledge across a number of different fields. How do we define that? Is that smart or intelligent? I think it's both. But then, what if you have like somebody who's really good at work because he's got a narrow focus and he's good at that, but he can't use his mind on anything else? Would you call that person smart? No, really. There's a bunch of concepts there that we need to clearly define and we need to be clear about. I agree with that. And clearly, I don't have those definitions. So something to work on. Maybe good question to ask Greg. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe he has some good definitions around the different concepts that relate to intelligence and how those relate to, because there's also capacity. We are born with different capacities, but what's important is how much we use it. And then there is a difference between capacity and then conceptualization, the actual use of your abstract thinking ability. And then what happens when somebody is really good at math, but can't use his thinking for anything else? Actually, Ayn Rand has a really good essay on that. That would be a good members only session. She has a letter to Boris Spassky, the chess player, who's obviously a genius at chess. But she criticizes him for not applying his thinking ability for anything else. So let's look at that essay, and maybe we can learn something about intelligence and smarts and some of these other concepts that relate to it. Sebastian, do you think Trump will use force to manipulate the election or stay in power? What should we look out for? Well, I don't put it beyond him. That is, I think there's a possibility that he does, particularly if he thinks that Republicans in Congress will go along with it, and particularly if he thinks that MAGA will go along with it, and that the rest of us will just kind of say, we don't like it, but not do anything about it. So the more we roll over and play dead with regard to ICE or with regard to smaller violations of our rights, the more likely it is that he goes all out. What do we look for? An escalation from ICE. And the application maybe of ICE to do more than just immigration. And a call maybe from some of the promoters of MAGA like Bannon for him to use force in that way, because I think he listens to them. But yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility. Roland says, great speech by Zelensky. Wish the world had more leaders like him. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my top two leaders, I think, are Milei and then Zelensky in the world today. Anem, you don't care for international law. No, it's not that I don't care for it. That's way too weak. I think it's illegitimate. I don't think it's a law. It's not binding. It's meaningless and insignificant. So that's, I think, a little stronger than I don't care for it. But if you had to choose between international law gaining more power versus Vance winning, would you still prefer international law gaining? Well, I don't know how that is a trade-off. I don't like these kind of this or that. Those aren't alternatives. You have to fight against international law and fight against Vance. And let's say international law gains power and Vance wins. Is Vance going to follow international law? Is international law backed by nukes? Does international law have any ability to, be applied? Could Vance be prosecuted by anybody? No, so it's irrelevant. International law is just irrelevant. The good guys, the weak good guys, play by its rules. The bad guys never do, and the good guys who are strong never do. So why even have it? Newly Dan, is there the chance that the U.S. can become a theocratic under Christianity? I mean, there is long term. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But that's, to some extent, Leonard Peikoff's prediction in the dim hypothesis. I mean, I think it would be moderately theocratic, not theocratic in the sense of Iran and women wearing hijabs, or in the sense of, what was that TV show where all the women were there just to make babies and stuff like that? That I don't think is possible. But what is possible is outlaw abortion on a national scale. Maybe even make contraception difficult to get or illegal. School prayer everywhere. Banners proclaiming Christianity everywhere. Things like that. More of a recognition of Christianity's essential part in the nation, but not any particular doctrine of Christianity being implemented anyway, if that makes sense. So not full-blown theocracy, but soft theocracy. Yeah, I think very much possible within the next 20 to 50 years. Molten Splendor. After your coverage of Jack Smith's testimony, it appears that the mob boss has all his Republican lieutenants in tow. Why are they all so afraid of their gang boss? It's scary to me. What does he have over them? Well, what he has over them is MAGA. What he has over them are the voters. What he has over them is, I mean, it's the Republicans who vote in the primaries. What he has over them is their position in Congress. He'll just, basically, he'll just basically primary them out of existence, out of the party. And what he has over them is balls. You can say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is not, in a sense, is not a coward. He says what he thinks. He doesn't care. And they are cowards. They're cowards. They don't want to confront him. And he makes enemies easily, and he persecutes his enemies. He doesn't just say you're an enemy, he goes after them. And going after them means they lose their position in Congress, the people in their district don't like them anymore, the Republican establishment, the MAGA Republican establishment turns against them. Yep. So Republican congressmen and senators have become mindless zombies. I mean, there are few that exceptions like Rand Paul. But the rest of them, and Tallis, who's now leaving Congress because he stood up to Trump, so he's leaving the Senate because he knows he would be primaried and he knows he'd lose. Right? I never tell you when I'm going to be on. First of all, YouTube tells you way in advance when I'm going to be on, and I announce it on Twitter, always. So people make stuff up. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable how cowardly they are. Unbelievably. All right, let's see. Gail, I look at the 25th Amendment. What is at its core? Basically, at its core is that the cabinet can announce, in a sense, that the president does not have the capacity to govern, and they can go through Congress, and ultimately they can replace him, and replace him with the vice president. It's basically, it's something that the cabinet can initiate, which is unusual. I almost always broadcast in the same hour. I don't know why people are bewildered. It's kind of weird. All right, free market capital. If you were president, what steps would you take to secure Ukraine victory against Russia? How much support would you give before risking nuclear escalation, assuming providing weapons isn't enough? Well, I think providing weapons is enough. I don't think you need more than weapons. I would give them the long-range missiles that they need. I would give them the air defense systems that they need. I would lease them with expectation that I would provide them with loans with expectation that they pay it back. But I would provide them with I would look at my stockpiles, and all the expiring weapons I would hand over to the Ukrainians. I would have to be a military expert to know what they need, but they certainly need more airplanes. They need F-16s. What they really need is F-35s. Now, whether they have an Air Force that can fly F-35s, I do not know. But those are the kind of things you would look at. But what they need is to dominate the air. And if they dominate the air, then they can dominate the ground. And right now, the reason it's a drone war is because neither one dominates the air. Both, the Russians can't really fly over Ukraine, and Ukraine can't fly over Russia. But imagine if Ukraine could take out Russia's air defense systems. Then game over. Russia would have to retreat. It would have to retreat. They'd be sitting ducks, and the Ukrainians would just destroy them. So I'd give them the kind of air power, not flown by Americans, flown by Ukrainians, that they would need. Now, again, you'd have to be a military strategist to figure this out, but there's no question in my mind that with the right weapons, and indeed, if the Biden administration had given them the right weapons at the right time, this could have been over a long time ago, or at least been much better for Ukraine a long time ago. It's Biden's hesitation to give them the weapons, support with words, but resistance to give them weapons is what creates the challenge. If you want to know when I go live, by the way, all you have to do is subscribe. If you subscribe, YouTube will let you know. Generally, I go live at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. East Coast time. Pretty much every day. Sometimes that changes because of other things happening. Except for Tuesdays. Tuesdays, at least until mid-March, I go live 1 hour later. But every other day, it's 2 p.m. East Coast, and I've been fairly consistent. I mean, granted, I deviate on occasion. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Not that hard. If you're interested in watching the show, it's easy to keep track. And again, if you subscribe, YouTube will let you know. And if you follow me on Twitter, I will let you know. I announce the shows in advance. Clark Young, Putin must be rolling around the floor with laughter at Trump. Oh, yeah. He's been doing that for years. For a long time. He's been doing that. So, absolutely. Thank you, Wes. Really appreciate the sticker. $25. That helps us get much closer. Jeremy, thank you for the sticker. You guys are helping get us closer to the goal. Less than $100, guys. 5 $20 questions, and we are there. We are there. Clark, I suspect that there's a major recession or depression, and Trump really unleashes ICE and declares martial law. Impeachment and conviction could happen. I don't know, and I don't see us really heading towards certainly not towards a depression, I don't think, and maybe a recession, but even that is, right now, the U.S. economy is growing. You might not see the growth in jobs, but it's growing in terms of consumption. Now, we'll see what happens. Interest rates are still going up. We'll talk about interest rates tomorrow. The dollar's going down in value. I mean, since Trump came into office, the dollar's gone down a lot. Now, maybe he's doing that on purpose. I don't know. I doubt it. And long-term interest rates have not gone down. Short-term interest rates, the ones controlled by the Fed, have gone down, expecting long-term rates to come down, and long-term rates have not come down much. And that means mortgage rates have not come down much. And there's very little the government can do to lower long-term rates. So, I mean, unless he orders the Fed to start buying long-term bonds, which would be, which the Fed doesn't do except in emergencies. So it could happen. But Trump would like to have more control over the economy and be able to manipulate it even more. Oh, I didn't do the segment on Trump's free market thing. Should I do the segment on Trump's free market? I missed that. Let's do that. I think I've got it here. Watch this exchange between Donald Trump and Maria Bartiromo, whatever. I know Maria. She's interviewed me many times. Anyway, here she is interviewing Trump, and watch this exchange. It's quite revealing of Donald Trump's approach.
Economy, Mr. President, because when I first interviewed you, when you first came back, it was about a month after the inauguration for your second term, I asked you, Mr. President, what do you want the economy to look like in 4 years? And you were very clear. You said, I want the private sector to rule the day. And since then, in the last year, you've taken a 10% stake in Intel, you've taken a stake in MP, Mountain Pass, you told the defense companies 2 weeks ago, don't pay any dividends, don't do buybacks until you produce the weapons that we need. So please explain to our audience, how is that free market capitalism?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I wish more people asked him questions like that. But even more interesting than the question, listen to his answer. He evades the answer. I mean, he goes around and around, and he's ignoring it. But that's exactly the question that needs to be asked.
Oh, it's a very free market. We have defense companies that were making a fortune. They were buying back stock with all their money, and then they come to us for money if they want to, we want to buy something or we want to have plants built, and they'd say, could you loan us the money? And they'd be doing tens of billions of dollars of stock buyback, so I'm not letting them do it.
It's not about them loaning money. They want purchases. They want the U.S. government to buy their stuff. That's what they're there for. They're defense contractors. But he wants to run them. He wants to tell them.
Into, we have the best equipment in the world.
We have the best equipment in the world because we have relatively free defense contractors who don't have to pay dividends based on what the government says. They don't have to pay their CEOs based on what the government says. We have a little bit of free markets. That's why we have the best equipment in the world.
Patriots, the Tomahawks, the F-35s, all of our equipment's the best. Other countries want it, and we want it. We need more. It takes too long to get it. And I said, we're not going to do that anymore. So also, they were making tremendous amounts of money. I mean, 25.
Oh, God, they're making a lot of money.
$37 million a year. That's a lot of money. That's almost as much as you make. You work harder.
Not.
You work harder than them. No, but, they were making, I asked one of the gentlemen, what are you making? Sir, I make $24 million. How come it takes me 5 years to get your particular thing that they make, right? So I put a cap on that for a period of time. I said, you have to build more plants. When we need Tomahawks, I want them within 24 hours. When we need any kind of a Patriot or whatever I want to have it quickly. I don't want to be waiting 3 years for it. What kind of a thing is that? And you make all this money. And I'm prohibiting them from doing stock buyback. And they haven't even complained about it.
Well, so free market capitalism, unless it's a national security issue?
Look, it's free market. It's stupid market letting that take. Why would I let them do stock buybacks and we give them, the businesses from us?
So, of course, he doesn't deal with the origin of the question, which is about the government taking stakes in companies. Free markets accept if it's a national security, but the stake he took in U.S. Steel is not national security. His stake in Intel, not national security. This is all, it's BS. He likes running things. He is a central planner. Every part of his body, everything about him is about central planning. So, yeah, it's just another. I thought I'd show you that just to show you, not that you would be surprised. Maybe some of you, because some of you still support Trump, some of you still fans of his, but he's not a free market president. Nothing close. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. I'm just going to comment on this. Asaf says, in reference to Gaza, Iran is ignoring the fact that Israel and Bibi were funding the Hamas for all these years. How many times have I talked about Bibi supporting Hamas, Bibi allowing the Qatari money to come into Hamas, Bibi, Israel even really funding Hamas originally and creating Hamas in the 1980s? I've talked about that for 20 frigging years. So I didn't mention it this time when I talked about Gaza, and Asaf is going to correct me. Well, excuse me, Asaf, that I can't give you the full dissertation of everything I've ever said about Gaza and about Bibi and about Hamas and about all this stuff every single time I mention the word Gaza. You guys are funny. You guys are really, really, really funny. All right. Harper Campbell. People on the right have accepted all the basic premises of the left and become merchants of despair in their own right. Yeah, absolutely. There's very little difference between the right and the left right now, except with regard to transgender athletes. If that is the most important issue in your life, then yeah, vote Republican. But except for that, I don't know, in abortion, which is where the right is so wrong. I mean, there are a few social issues which the right is different from the left. But other than that, on anything, they're either terrible on it, like abortion, or it's just not that important in the big scheme of things. But they're indistinguishable on so much of the important stuff. The role of government, the extent to which the government should be in our lives, that they completely agree. Liam says, a newly released ICE memo authorizes officers to enter homes without judicial warrants. Yeah, it's a executive warrant. It's a different kind of warrant, but it is important to know, just to give it objectivity, Liam, because I don't have TDS. It's a warrant that only applies for people that have outstanding deportation orders and have not been deported. They've appealed, they've gone through the whole process, and they have a deportation order, and they're supposed to be deported. Then they can go into the home. Now, I'm not saying that to justify it. I'm just saying, so far, ICE is delimited their ability to enter homes without a warrant. But if we don't react to every little breach like this, it will become bigger and bigger and bigger, and more of an infringement of our rights. All right. Liam, if ICE barges into your home without a warrant, should you be morally allowed to poo-poo them? Yes, but again, they're not allowed to do that yet, unless you have an outstanding deportation decree against you, or whatever it's called. Even then, they shouldn't be allowed, but it is limited, so most of you are pretty safe. Let's not panic yet. Liam says, I'm interested in how ordinary people come to rationalize state action carried out in their name, and what happens when due process and personal morality responsibility become optional. Well, I mean, it's really simple. They're convinced that illegal aliens are raping their daughters and taking their jobs, and nobody's done anything about it for years and years, and finally Trump has come and he's doing something about it, and he's sending these ICE officers, and yeah, it's ugly, and sometimes they do things that are inappropriate, but generally what they're doing is for the good, and it's important work, and we need to be a safe society, and we need to get these people out of here. So they tolerate it. And the fact that it's an abdication of their rights, well, what do they know about their rights anyway? How much of their rights, how much do they really understand about their rights and what it means to have moral personal responsibility? Very few people have that concept, really, and understand it in any significant way. Newly Dan, is not the dictator's strategy to stay in power part of their ideology? Well, no, it could be non-ideological. I don't think Trump is ideological. Trump is, I want power. That's it. It's not in the name of fascism or socialism or egalitarianism or even pragmatism. It's just, I want power. And I deserve it because I did good things, whatever. So you can be a power luster without being an ideologue or without being ideological. All right. Harrison, do I have the right to use my body card to prevent IRS agents from collecting taxes? Like the Berkeley student protests that Rand excoriated once. You don't have that right. And you have the right to do it, but you will sit in jail for it. So you could argue it's civil disobedience, but then you have to, you suffer the consequences of it. You can decide not to pay your taxes, as Peter Schiff's father did, and sat for years and years and years and years in jail because you refuse to pay his taxes. So you can refuse the government, but you know, there is a massive difference. Look, if IRS, let's change this a little bit. If IRS agents were going door to door and demanding that you identify yourself and demanding to see your bank statements, then you would have every right in the world to block them and to interfere in their actions and to refuse to participate. Now, you would go to jail, but you would be on the right, because that has taken the generally accepted now for 100 years process of paying your taxes. It's taken it to authoritarian levels. So there are differences here, right? Now, again, Berkeley student protest is something very different. They were doing illegitimate things in the name of illegitimate ideas on what should be viewed as private property. Here, the officers are coming to your house, or they are in the public space in your neighborhood. Why would you not be able to block them when what they're doing is illegitimate? What they're doing is a violation of rights. What they're doing is using worse than processes going after criminals in order to go after people who are not criminals. I'm sorry, illegal immigration is not a crime. It's a civil offense. If they were doing the same thing to all of us, because a bunch of you guys, a certain percentage of you, I know, a significant percent are illegal taxpayers. Why are you illegal taxpayers? Because you probably cheat a little bit on your taxes. You underreport certain things, you take deductions when you shouldn't. My guess is a significant percent of an American population does that. Imagine if the United States government then assigned a police force, IRS agents, to go house by house, to come in, ask you how come you can afford this nice car, come into your house, look at your furniture, check out your flat screen TV, and demand to see your bank statements. Again, you would be absolutely okay. You know, as it is right now, they can do some of that, but they don't come to your house. They don't walk around your neighborhood. They don't, shuffle you off without any evidence into their cars and whisk you away. They're not masked. You know, today, IRS does it in a civilized way. They ask you to come to their offices with the appropriate documentation. They're not masked. They're not, it's not an unlabeled envelope. There's a massive difference between the level of violation of rights. And all I'm saying is people have the right to engage in civil disobedience over a militarization of going after people who violated civil law, not even criminal law. I mean, if they're going after rapists and murderers, okay, but that's a tiny fraction of the people they're arresting. A tiny fraction. In spite of the government propaganda that says otherwise. They're lying to you. Molten Splendor says, did you see the video of the ICE agent who entered a Thai restaurant with his gun unholstered, saying he was looking for a kid? No, I didn't see that. It's unbelievable. And it's you guys who are justifying them that are making that possible. Linda, thank you for getting the truth out there. You appreciate it. Appreciate that, Linda. Linda also says, Atlas Shrugged and other books by Ayn Rand changed my life for the better, though IBS does as well. Harrison says, Google Jack Lang MPLS protest. Your anti-ICE rioters try to murder him for daring to hold a legitimate protest for a different point of view. Oh, give me a break. You guys are so. First of all, they're not my anti-ICE rioters or protesters or whatever they are. They're not mine. I don't believe in protesting. I believe in, where ICE agents are, go in, harass them, videotape them, yell at them. Don't get yourself arrested. Don't use violence. So I'm against violence. But I'm sure Jack Lang, whatever, is the most decent of fellows. He's probably a sweetheart of a human being and probably did nothing offensive at all. And look, if protesters get violent, then I'm against that. I'm against violence. I don't believe in violent protesters. But ICE is pulling guns not on people who are violent. ICE is pulling guns on people who are yelling at them, people who are filming them. ICE just murdered a woman who was trying to drive away from a scene in violation of every code of how you use a weapon by every single law enforcement agency, including ICE itself, including Homeland Security. So, yeah, ICE rioters out there, ICE protesters out there who are listening to my show, don't use violence. Don't use violence. It's not good. It's evil to use violence. And I'm sure, yeah, anyway. DB, you ridiculed Mark Rutte for kissing up to Trump in an earlier show. He is a pragmatist, willing to do anything to meet his goal, not to be trusted. Yeah, I know. I mean, yes. A super pragmatist is absolutely what he is, and he'll kiss Trump's ass whenever he thinks he needs to in order to calm things down, because that's what you need to do, kiss his ass in order to get him to calm down, because he is an emotionalist thug. Matt says, Congress is most limping group of people ever. Yep, this Congress in particular. Free Market Capital, new show idea could be on UN and international law, why you think they're illegitimate, and what would be better alternative. I think I've done that show. I'm pretty sure I've done the show on the UN, but happy to do it again. I think if you search Yaron Brook UN, you'll find that show. But I'm reluctant to repeat myself. But there's a lot of material I've done that I could just redo, and there's probably worth doing. Dan Norton says, I just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'll be doing a live stream today after Yaron's show. Hope to see you there. At Dan Norton, please include the 1 in the channel name, Dan Norton 1, I guess, for the correct address. All right. Robert, Border Peace. Trump now has a second-hand peace prize, fresh from the local Goodwill thrift store. I'm sure he'll soon become Board of Peace. Board of Peace, B-O-R-E-D. I think he said he already was. Didn't he say in that one rant, maybe now the letter he sent the Prime Minister of Norway, where he said, I didn't get the peace prize, so maybe now I'm bored of peace and from peace, and now I'll flex some muscles. All right. That is it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, for those of you who really, really want to know, really desperately, what time I will do the show tomorrow, it will do at 2 p.m. East Coast time. Shockingly. It will be at 2 p.m. East Coast time. So I will see you there, hopefully. And don't forget Patreon, patreon.com. Become a monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show. Thanks, guys. See you soon.